We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
Welcome, everyone, to this last Sunday in January. Let's see, 20. I started to say 19 something. 2023. So time does fly by. So we are here for our weekly gathering in the sanctuary. And as they say in the Unity Church, you are here by divine purpose. You have been called here to join us in awakening together. So, all right. Well, let me share our purpose. We are an assembly of equals, joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self with an appearance of many face. Within an appearance of many face, many cultures and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. And we have 5 core values. I've selected core value number 3 for this homily. We accept one true self, which is one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. So, yeah, Joe Crocker, one of the oldies, actually, I guess my contemporary. So, join me in invocation as we continue. Guide me, truth, into the heart of what is real. And I'd like to share with you the prayer found in Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 through 13. Pray like this, according to what you find in your heart. Father, let me know you. Let your kingdom dawn upon my mind, that I might be led by your will and become as one with it. Let me hear your word within my mind. Let my lessons be given me, that I may be closer to you through the actions of my day. Let me forgive myself as I know you have. Let me see my brothers as innocent as they truly are, and let us watch our minds for evil thoughts that would trick and blind us to the light within. And let us let those thoughts go, so that they may not cloud our minds from knowing the truth. Amen. So, we have a reading from the 7 Steps to Awakening. That's what I'm going to focus on, the homily today. This is such a simple message, but it is very profound. As I shared in what I sent Sana, hiding in plain sight, the path to awakening is right in front of you. But the imposter self, the ego, the thought of being a separate being, is a master of distraction, just like the magician that uses sleight of hand to distract us from what's really going on. Michael Langford has cut away all the distractions in his 7 Steps to Awakening and shows us the proper use of our time to get to reality. And so Joseph Schmidt is going to lead us as our reader today. Go right ahead, Joseph.
All right. Thanks, George. Is the volume okay? All right. Good morning, everyone. So happy to be here. And George, that opening song was just one of my favorites. And I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to see well enough to read. There's so many tears here. So anyway, I will do what I can. It is a lengthy reading. However, this morning I was prompted to ask, with your permission, George, at the end of this, if I have any oxygen left in voice, there's a very short passage in NTI. For those who started NTI, the 500 Days with NTI on January 8th. It's from today's reading, and I think it fits perfectly with this. So anyway, here we go. This is from the introduction. You, dear reader, have a choice. Choice A is to bring the imposter self and all forms of suffering to a final end, and thus enjoy the perfect awareness, love, bliss of your true self forever. Choice B is to continue to be controlled by the imposter self, identified with a temporary physical body that is subject to hundreds of diseases, while living in a world that has had more than 15,000 wars in the last 5,000 years. As soon as there is any mention of bringing the imposter self to a final end, the imposter self in most humans immediately begins to generate thoughts, concepts, and reasons for why the imposter self should not be brought to a final end. The imposter self is very cunning and can use thoughts in thousands of different combinations to prevent you from bringing it to a final end. There are almost no spiritual teachings that effectively deal with the problem of the cunning tricks of the imposter self, and thus almost no humans succeed in bringing the imposter self to a final end. Therefore, it is essential to begin by facing the fact that no human really wants to bring the imposter self to a final end. Why would you want to bring the imposter self to a final end? Because the true self has never experienced any suffering in all eternity. The true self is infinite, eternal awareness, love, bliss. Infinite awareness, love, bliss is an eternal awareness, love, bliss is an infinitely better choice than being controlled by an imposter self that pretends to be you, but is not really you. Some teachings call the imposter self ego. Other teachings call the imposter self mind. The term imposter self is a better term than ego because the word ego has so many different definitions. Psychology defines ego in one way. The dictionary defines ego in another way, and these definitions are not the same as what the awakened sages mean by the word ego. The imposter self is thought. The imposter self is the words in your mind. These words, those words of the language or languages you are fluent in, came from outside of you. That is why you cannot speak fluently in 100 languages, because language comes from the outside. You existed before you learned the languages you now think in. Therefore, you are not thought. However, thought pretends to be you. One reason to make choice A is so that you can experience your true self. In other words, choice A is a choice to end the false and eternally live in the true. The most effective means to stop the tricks of the imposter self is to increase your desire for liberation. The desire for liberation is a desire for freedom from, 1, the imposter self, 2, this false dreamlike world. 3, all forms of suffering. The desire for liberation is also the desire to live as a true self so that you can enjoy awareness, love, bliss forever. The importance of increasing your desire for liberation has been pointed out by many awakened sages, such as Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj and Sri Sankara. The question is, how to make your desire for liberation increase? There are positive and negative ways to increase your desire for liberation. The 7 steps to awakening. In the 7 steps to awakening, one of the categories quotes have been placed under is step 5. Be inspired, encouraged, and motivated to actually practice all 7 steps. Reading those quotes repeatedly is a positive way to increase your desire for liberation. All of the quotes in the 7 steps to awakening have the potential to increase your desire for liberation. Facing the negative aspects of the life the imposter self leads is a negative way to increase your desire for liberation. Comparing choice A with choice B is also a way to increase your desire for liberation. When the desire for liberation becomes extremely intense, 1, self-honesty becomes intense. 2, suddenly you can see the thousands of ways the imposter self tricked you in the past. 3, suddenly you can see the significance of the quotes that the false self never allowed you to see before. Historically, not even 1 in a million humans have succeeded in bringing the imposter self to its final end. That is because of the cunning tricks the imposter self uses to preserve its imaginary self. Those cunning tricks are mostly in the form of thoughts, concepts, ideas, desires, emotions, etc. Some of the quotes in the 7 steps to awakening were selected for the purpose of helping you to put an end to the tricks or preservation strategies that the imposter self uses. Excuse me. Some of the quotes in the 7 steps to awakening were selected to help you. Okay. Some of the quotes in the 7 steps to awakening were selected to help put you back on track when the imposter self derails you from your journey to awakening. When one who is not free from the imposter self selects quotes, usually many of the quotes they select are quotes that will help the imposter self to continue. Even if they select some of the most powerful quotes, the imposter self does not let them see the significance of the quotes. Increasing your desire for liberation will help you to see the significance of the quotes and why the specific quotes in the 7 steps to awakening were selected. Most people tend to think that everything an awakened sage says is part of his or her teaching and therefore helpful for awakening. This is not true, as the following saying of Sri Ramana Maharshi illustrates. Quote, "The sage's pure mind, which beholds as a mere witness the whole world, is like a mirror which reflects the foolish thoughts of those who come before him. And these thoughts are then mistaken to be his." End quote. That quote comes from the book, The Garland of Guru's Sayings, translated into English by K. Swaminathan. It is Garland quote number 1106. In the 7 steps to awakening, it is quote number 34. Thousands of pages of quotes have been printed because of the mistaken view that everything a sage says is a part of his or her teachings. Garland quote number 1106 corrects that mistaken view. The quotes in the 7 Steps to Awakening are a loving transmission from your true self. Through these quotes, your true self is communicating to you. Quote, I really love you and want the best for you. I don't want you to continue to suffer needlessly. Here in these quotes, I am showing you the way to bring the illusion to an end and to awaken into the reality of eternal awareness, love, bliss. Here in these quotes, I am showing you what most aspirants cannot see, even if they have read some of these quotes before. Here, I have collected the quotes that are most essential and most helpful for those who really wish to awaken in this lifetime. Here, I have collected the quotes that have no detours or distractions. Here, I have collected the quotes that reveal the most direct means that bring the imposter self to its final end. The quotes have been placed in various categories that are steps to awakening. The categories have been selected to be most helpful to show how to remove the obstacles that prevent most aspirants from bringing the imposter self to its final end. The first step is to know that a journey that never goes beyond thought is not a journey to awakening. Know the difference between A, using the teachings as practice instructions, and B, getting lost or stuck in concepts. People often study spiritual teachings just because they find the concepts interesting. They like to discuss the teachings, argue about the teachings, think about the teachings, go on and on asking questions but missing answers, etc. Most people fail to distinguish between that which is essential and that which is merely a distraction or detour. Like a group of people who meet in an automobile once per week to discuss various maps without ever putting the key in the ignition and without ever moving the car even 1 inch. Approaching the teachings this way assures failure to awaken. Most people approach the teachings this way, and most people fail to bring the imposter self to its final end. In most people, the desire to allow the imposter self to continue is much greater than their desire for liberation. Until that problem is honestly faced and corrected, the imposter self will create many preservation strategies, such as 1, distorting the teachings, 2, choosing teachings that are not effective, 3, avoiding the practice that leads to the imposter self's final end, 4, staying in the realm of concepts, and 5, pretending to its imaginary self that it is not engaged in preservation strategies, etc. The imposter self directs the study of the teachings in a way that will ensure that the imposter self can continue its imaginary existence. When Sri Ramana Maharshi was in his teens, a spontaneous experience came upon him that removed the imposter self from him forever. Sri Ramana Maharshi's body passed away in 1950. Sri Muruganar was liberated from the imposter self soon after meeting Sri Ramana Maharshi. Sri Muruganar spent decades in the company of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Because Sri Muruganar was a liberated sage, while collecting Sri Ramana Maharshi's sayings, the Garland of Guru's sayings is the best source of Sri Ramana Maharshi's sayings. When the teachings are seen through the eyes of one who is not free from the imposter self, the teachings are distorted. Since Sri Muruganar was free from the imposter self while collecting Sri Ramana Maharshi's sayings, the teachings were seen clearly. All of the Sri Ramana Maharshi quotes in the 7 Steps to Awakening come from K. Swaminathan's English translation of the Garland of Guru's sayings. While probably not the most literal, it is the best translation for sincere aspirants who are truly dedicated to being liberated in this lifetime. It is a divinely inspired translation. The intellectual and scholarly type of people tend to prefer the most literal translations. The intellectual and scholarly type of people almost never become free of the imposter self unless they cease to be the intellectual and scholarly type. The motivations of the sincere aspirant and the motivations of the intellectual and scholarly people are almost always quite different. Not only avoiding arguing about spiritual teachings, but even avoiding the company of those who do spend time arguing about spiritual teachings has been advised by Sri Ramana Maharshi and other sages. Most people who consider themselves to be devotees do not even attempt to follow the advice given, and that is an example of one of the imposter self's many tricks. The Sri Muruganar quotes in the 7 Steps to Awakening come from the book Sri Guru Ramana Prasadam, translated into English by Robert Butler. Sri Sadhu Om spent many years in the company of Sri Ramana Maharshi and decades in the company of Sri Muruganar. The Sri Sadhu Om quotes in the 7 Steps to Awakening come from the book The Path of Sri Ramana, Part 1. Many pages in The Path of Sri Ramana, Part 1 are devoted to explaining why self-inquiry is really self-attention. Here is a quote by Sri Sadhu Om. In Sanskrit, the terms Atman and Aham both mean I. Hence, Atman Vikara means an attention seeking, who is this I? It may rather be called I attention, self-attention, or self-abidance. Often English translations of these teachings have so many non-English words that the book becomes a foreign language course instead of a spiritual teaching. The quotes in the 7 Steps to Awakening contain almost no non-English words. This was accomplished by selecting quotes that contain only English words, with few exceptions, such as the words guru and yoga, which are already familiar to most English readers. In the book, The Supreme Yoga, Swami Venkatasananda writes the following 2 definitions of the word vikara. Vikara, or inquiry, is not reasoning nor analysis. Vikara or inquiry is not reasoning nor analysis. It is directly looking into oneself. Number 2, vikara, usually translated inquiry, is direct observation. The spiritual meaning of the term self-inquiry is directly looked into. The spiritual meaning of the term self-inquiry is directly looking into one's self, which can also be described as self-attention. Since the true self is awareness, this can also be described as attention to awareness, or awareness aware of itself. This is not 2 awarenesses, one watching the other. This is just one awareness, aware of itself. And what is itself? Itself is awareness. Thus, awareness of awareness. Directly looking into oneself is directly looking into awareness, because the capital S self is awareness. Sometimes the quotes refer to, quote, self-knowledge. Self-knowledge in these teachings does not mean conceptual knowledge. Self-awareness or self-experience are closer to the spiritual meaning. When the quotes are warning against false knowledge, the word knowledge does mean conceptual knowledge.
Hey, Joe.
Yes.
That's enough of the reading there. You want to go ahead and share your
yes.
NTI quote?
Thank you, George. This is from NTI Matthew chapter 10, and it's verse 26 to 31. Do not fear the world or what you see or hear there. I say to you, the world is not real. It will come to pass, but you are eternal, and what is eternal is real. Let your mind be turned from the temporal and fearful to the eternal, for what is eternal can have no fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. You know, I got kind of a raspy throat myself, so hopefully I can get through this myself here. So, well, so that was quite an introduction. So I want to go over some of the things in this introduction. I think one of the reasons that Spirit chose this is this is Gentle Healing 3, going through the 7 steps of awakening. And also, I noticed that Regina's Out of the Stillness is now part of the Gentle Healing 3 curriculum. So, and I think Cindy Krupp and Susan Telford are the instructors. And I'm not sure exactly, but it's coming up pretty soon. So, you know, the imposter self does a great job with this one, George, in procrastinating and distracting. So, first and foremost, this message is for me. And each one of you, I hope, can get something out of this. So let me just briefly cover what's going to be covered through this book. So step 1 is going to be using the quotes as a practice with the understanding that a conceptual journey is not the journey to awakening. And so concepts, you know, we relate to the world in concepts, in symbols. Conceptual of, relating to, or consisting of concepts. And it's real easy to get caught up in concepts, because that's what the imposter self is most comfortable with. Step 2 is knowing that the world is a dream-like illusion. As I was studying this, it brought to mind an old series from the 60s. Yep, I was there, called The Twilight Zone. Most of you are too young. But the Twilight Zone is a place that exists at any moment of time of space or mind, but always when you least expect it. When you find yourself in this realm of unlimited possibility, be careful what you say or do. The right decision may help you find your way back out, sometimes with greater happiness and wealth. The wrong decisions often lead to madness and death, or an eternity trapped in this dimension. Tread warily past the signpost ahead that says you've entered the twilight zone. And we are truly in the twilight zone. You know, Michael shares with us, we got two choices. Choice A, to bring the imposter self to the end, and choice B, to continue. For those of you who watched The Matrix, that could be the red pill or the blue pill. Neo was offered an opportunity to transcend the world that he thought was real. He could have taken the blue pill and just gone back to his boring, unhappy life. But he chose the red pill. So we have that same choice. But it's not a one-time choice. It's an every moment choice. In every moment, we have the opportunity to choose the red pill or the blue pill. So, but the imposter self is very cunning. After all, most of us like being here, regardless of how happy or unhappy we are. We like being here. We like this experience of this life. And if we don't like it, then we like not liking it. We enjoy suffering in a way. We enjoy seeing ourselves as a victim of life in whatever form that comes. So, but why would we want to bring the imposter self to a close? You know, I mean, quite frankly, for most of us, that feels like death. And most of us want to stick around. Not always, but most of us. So, why? You have to answer that question for yourself. Why do I want to awaken? Well, the true self has never experienced any suffering in all eternity. Now, that term eternity is, there again, a symbol. But eternity to me is just now. We are in eternity. In this instant, this is eternity. And we seem to be in this illusion of time and space, of having a beginning, a story, and somewhere down the road, an ending. But our true self exists before the story and exists after the story. So, what is the imposter self? Michael says it's thought. It's a thought. It's the words in our mind. It's how we make sense of the world. It's a program. We were programmed by the time we were like 7 years old by the environment around us. And at least 80% of that program is fear-based. It's negative. So, and that's how we run our lives. So we make a choice, and very few people in this world even know they have a choice. We are, in a sense, the lucky ones. I was thinking the other day, damn, George is lucky. He's had his ups and downs, but he's very lucky. And I'd say that's true for each one of you, regardless of how you feel. You are lucky to be here, contemplating these concepts, at least getting a sense of direction on where you're going. And that's what this book is about. This book is about what's possible, where we are going. Now, whether you believe in reincarnation or not doesn't matter. There is this essence that continues on and on and on and on. Or you can choose to continue forever in a different, totally sense of awareness, bliss, without suffering. So we're in this dreamlike world, and this is where all the suffering takes place. So the question is how to make your desire for liberation increase. Now some people spontaneously awaken. I mean, Eckhart Tolle, Byron Katie are good examples of that. You know, in a way, that's kind of a crash and burn type scenario. They were suffering. Both of them were suffering tremendously. And that suffering somehow led them to have an experience of awakening. Personally, I don't like pain. I want the kinder, gentler path of awakening. And yet, it's easy to think we've got all the time in the world. We've got eternity, right? Well, not in this form, we don't. We've got a limited amount of time. So, now Michael says, historically, not even 1 in a million humans have succeeded in bringing the imposter self to its final end. Well, that sounds kind of discouraging. However, this process of awakening, if you've taken the 4 principles of God, or are going to take the 4 principles of God, you'll understand that awakening is a process. What most of us consider to be awakening is probably transcending this sense of being an individual. And that's in the 2nd principle of God. We see ourselves, many see themselves as awakening, and that's a goal to transcend this personality. But that's just the beginning. And I believe that what Michael Langford is talking about is completing the path to the 1st principle of God. That 1st principle of God is, for us, just a concept. And there again, most spiritual students do not have even the concept that there's something beyond the 2nd principle, beyond awakening, beyond the self. So don't let that discourage you. There's not a person in this room, or that's listening to this, that cannot awaken to that first step. So this book is probably one of the best ways to facilitate that awakening. In order to do that, we have to make the desire to awaken first and foremost in our lives. We have to have that desire for liberation. And I, speaking for myself, and you may feel the same way, that it's a casual journey. But there comes a point where it needs to become intense. So when the desire for liberation becomes extremely intense, what happens? Self-honesty becomes intense. We are masters of lying to ourselves, absolute masters. We don't awaken in concepts. We awaken because we hold that desire and we ask that spirit, that truth of who we truly are, to show us. And when we do that, we can suddenly see the thousands of ways the imposter self has tricked us in the past. We suddenly understand the significance of the quotes that the false self never allowed us to see before. So, the sage's pure mind, which beholds as mere witness the whole world, is like a mirror which reflects the foolish thoughts of those who come before him. And these thoughts are then mistaken to be his. So, you think about all of the spiritual literature in the world. You could spend a lifetime and not get through a fraction of everything that's been shared and written. And the reality is, we don't know who's awakened and who's not. They can sound good, they can look good, they can smell good, but we do not know truly if they're awakened. It's only spirit that can reveal that to us. That's that spirit within. So a lot of people most people get distracted by acquiring more and more and more knowledge and trusting what they think some sage is saying. I like this quote. The 7 steps of awakening are a loving transmission from your true self. The truth of who we are is within us. That's really where the message is coming from. It's coming within. We can read the most profound words ever written, listen to someone that's awakened, and not really understand. And so your true self is always communicating with us. And I really like this paragraph here. I really love you and want the best for you. As Reverend Glenn says, listen to the voice that likes you. The other voice doesn't. I'll guarantee you that. I don't want you to continue to suffer needlessly. Most of us are not real happy about suffering, but we don't know how to get out of it. So here in these quotes, I'm showing you the way to bring the illusion to an end and to awaken into the reality of eternal awareness, love, bliss. And here in these quotes, I'm showing you what most aspirants cannot see, even if they have read some of these quotes before. Here I have collected the quotes that are most essential and most helpful for all those who really wish to awaken in this lifetime. And here I have collected the quotes that have no detours or distractions. Here I've collected the quotes that reveal the most direct means that brings the imposter self to an end. So the question I have for myself, what am I waiting for? What am I waiting for? Why don't I just get on with it? Now, there's two paths to awakening, and one is this positive path, and the other one is a negative path, through our suffering. It's the Eckhart Tolle path of suffering. Now, he had no intention of awakening. He didn't know what awakening was, never thought about awakening. It just happened. But regardless, he awakened because of his suffering. As he was suffering, he had the thought, who is it that is suffering? And there's something that triggered within his mind to realize that there were two voices speaking to him. So the first step is to know that the journey never goes beyond the thought is not a journey to awakening. You've got to know the difference between using the teachings as practice instructions and getting lost or stuck in these concepts. I'd say most of us find spiritual teachings, study teachings because we find them kind of interesting, I mean, our ministerial program is a program of several months that really looks at aspects from awakened sages from every major religion, most major religions, and we're looking for that common theme in this process. People often study spiritual teachings not because they find, just because they find the concepts equal. They like to discuss them, argue with them about the teachings, think about the teachings, going on and on, asking questions. And as Michael shared, it's sort of like sitting in a car talking about what it's like to drive, but never starting the car. So what are some of the imposter self's strategies to distract us? Imposter self distorts the teachings, chooses teachings that are not effective. It distracts us from actually practicing the teachings that lead to its end, staying in the realm of concepts, of pretending to its imaginary self that it is not engaged in preservation strategies. And, I think it's the Course that calls this the spiritual ego. This is the last stumbling block for us, is the spiritual ego. So whenever these teachings are seen through the eyes of one who is not free from the imposter self, the teachings are distorted. So we need to avoid arguing about spiritual teachings. We need to even avoid the company of those who spend time arguing about spiritual teachings. Now, I've got a friend, this is a worldly example, but I'm a conservative, and he's not. And he loves to talk about politics. I don't like to talk about politics. And I've tried to share with him, I don't like to talk about it, but he does anyway. He can't help himself. And so I've gotten to where it's just like, I just listen. I don't disagree. I don't debate. I just listen. I let him go on because that's where he's at. The spiritual community is the same way. People love their viewpoints, and they like to argue about why they're right and everybody else is wrong. But that's a distraction. So, where are we time-wise? Ooh. I selected too long of a reading because I'm kind of long-winded. So how do we wrap this up here? So one of the ways, and the best for me, is to take Gentle Healing 3 and actually do the work. You want an example of someone that did the work? This is Regina's Contemplations, which is part of Gentle Healing 3 now. Of course, you're not going to, I don't think, cover this whole book because you can see, the difference between Regina and everyone else is she did the work. And that's what it takes. You have to make it first and foremost. I have to make it first and foremost in my life, or I'm going to run out of time. Let's not do that. Let's awaken together. All right. That's all I've got. I've enjoyed myself, and I hope this message has been helpful to you. So let us walk in peace and joy, happiness, bliss, awareness, awakening together is supported primarily by your donations. I think China has posted a link in the chat there if you feel so guided to donate. And so I see, didn't look like we have much time for sharing, but we do have a fellowship 30 minutes coming up that Joy Laura Bedford will share and facilitate for us. So I want to turn it back over to you, Sina, and thanks for being here.
Been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.